Good evening. I'm Emily, the JetSetting Fashionista. I'm so excited to be here this evening with Steve Matthiasson of Matthiasson Wines. For those of you tuning in for the first time, thank you so much for joining for my Instagram Live. Those of you that have been here before know that you can also find these on my YouTube channel, the JetSetting Fashionista. So give me a moment. I'm just going to wait and see if Steve is here to join me. Right. So is anybody tasting with us at home? And if so, let us know what you have in your glass tonight. I'm just inviting Steve in and getting the wines in front of me, which actually I already have the wines in front of me. Who are we kidding? Okay. All right. Steve is not here yet. But great to see you all. So happy Thursday. I haven't done this in a few weeks. It feels really great to be back. And oh my God, it's like summer. Well, it feels like summer. It's actually only spring. But I don't know about you guys. Here in Healdsburg, it was like 85 today. So the weather is amazing. But let me just give you a sneak peek while we're waiting for Steve of what you can expect tonight in our glass. We will be tasting this beautiful Matthiasson Rosé. I absolutely adore the peach color. And surprisingly, I have not even taken a sip. So I'm going to be just as surprised as you are when we have that wine. And then we're also going to be having a Napa Valley white wine, also made by Steve. And then lastly, we will be concluding with a Cabernet Sauvignon Blanc. I'm sorry, a Cabernet Sauv, not Sauv Blanc. It would not be a Napa Valley wine tasting in my eyes if we didn't have a Cab Sauv. And Steve Matthiasson is one of the legendary Cabernet makers in Napa Valley. Oh, good. Steve is here. All right, Steve, I'm going to invite you to join. Okay, they're coming. Excuse. Oh, there he is. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Hi.
I like
you
that.
got double glasses, sun and eyeglasswear.
Yeah, triple. I'm a glasses person. I got
Very
one I can see
protected.
through, and one I want to reduce the seeing.
Yeah. Hello. Well, so nice to see you. And
Yeah, good to see you.
I see you're in, well, one of your Napa vineyards because you've got two now,
Yep.
right?
Yep. This is our home vineyard. So
Okay.
this is like, there's our house right there.
Yeah, I've been to your home vineyard. It's a very
Yeah.
magical place.
And yeah, this is the house. If you guys have seen the movie Psalm 2, this house is all fallen down after the earthquake.
Oh my gosh.
As you can see, it's all like built back up again. And
wait, I didn't know you lost your house in the earthquake?
Yeah, our house moved over 5 inches and off the foundation and got red tagged
Oh my
in 2000,
God.
the earthquake in 2014.
Oh,
And so it was crazy, and about a quarter of our wine barrels fell on the ground and broke open.
I knew about the wine. For some reason, I didn't know about the house. I mean, I don't know which is worse, losing the wine or the house. That's a tough question for a winemaker.
It takes the wine to pay for the house.
Yeah, so I guess the wine.
The house can be rebuilt. The wine is gone. But the house is all good now, and so is the wine. So it's all good.
Okay. Oh my God, we have someone here cheersing from Norway. That's unbelievable. Hello, my family's from Norway. Although I don't know if this is one of my relatives, so maybe it's one of your fans. I've literally had cousins pop in at like 4 a.m. during these, and I'm like, what are you doing awake watching Instagram Live?
So you're Norwegian?
I am.
So I'm Icelandic. The name Matthiasson is Icelandic. And so that's originally from Norway. You know, they came from Norway to Iceland about 1,000 years ago.
Oh, cool.
And a funny story is that our importer in Iceland for our wine, I reached out and said, hey, I'm Icelandic too. And our family's from the north part of Iceland. The reason that I'm here is because my great-great-grandfather died at sea. Oh. And so they lost the farm to the younger brother and had to immigrate to the U.S. And he's the descendant of the younger brother.
Wow.
That actually got the farm that we lost, and so he's literally my fourth cousin.
Wow, and he is your distributor in Iceland.
Yeah. How's that for a small world?
That's really cool. So anybody tuning in from Iceland, Matthiasson wines are available. Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, oh my God, everybody keeps waving. You guys, I don't know if I can wave at you all. I'm just overwhelmed, but I'm so happy to see you here. So Steve, we have some viewers drinking the rosé along with us. So shall we start with the rosé or the white wine? What are you feeling like?
Rosé, definitely a rosé.
That was an easy choice. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I have not even previewed this. Normally I take a sneak peek and I ran out of time, so I haven't. But I have so many questions for you. Where to start? Like this beautiful color. How do you make this rosé? I mean, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. We also need to talk about the background of Matthiasson. So which would you rather start with?
Well, let's talk about the rosé really quick.
Okay.
Because you have it in the glass, and because the rosé defines so much about our sort of mission with our wine, which is make wines that enliven you and energize you. So that the rosé has lightness, it has salinity, weight without heaviness, kind of like floats off the palate.
Yeah.
And that's the rosé is the most clear example of that of all of our wines. It's just a wine that gives you energy. That's the idea.
I know. I mean, I feel bad. I'm drinking it alone. I feel like this and 85 degrees out, I should just be like having a party drinking it. Although I will be drinking it on National Rosé Day, which is June 12th, and that's my birthday party. I'm having all of my favorite rosés. So I'll be opening another bottle of this then to share with my friends.
Nice.
Yeah. So then how do you make this rosé?
So the first off is that growing grapes for rosé is totally different than growing grapes for red wine, right? So rosé is made from red grapes. Normally with red wine, you want small berries, lots of skin. The skin's what gives you all the color and all the mouthfeel and everything. The skins, for those of you who don't know how wine is made, the skin is like the tea bag that's in the fermentation that gives you all the a lot of the red wine flavors. So with white wine, it's the juice on the inside of the berry you're looking for, right? And so because you press it and then you discard the skins and you ferment the juice. So with our rosé, we grow the grapes for rosé, so we're looking for nice, big, fat, juicy berries. It's the exact opposite of what you'd want for red wine. And then we pick it really early, like as in July, which is like 6 weeks or 2 months before normal harvest time, because we want to get the crisp, really crisp, refreshing flavors, because the flavors keep changing as the fruit's ripening. It gets richer and richer. With rosé, we don't want rich wine. We want light, crisp, refreshing wines. We have nice juicy berries. We pick it nice and early.
And which grapes are they? The red?
Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre, and Counoise. So they're all grapes from the Rhone.
So it's
traditionally
GSM
from the Rhone.
K. Isn't Counoise
GSM,
K?
yeah, or C. Counoise is C.
Oh, I know. I was like, how do you spell Counoise? GSMC.
Counoise. And Counoise is one of the approved varietals in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It gives you strawberry. It's basically kind of it's a simpler grape, but it gives you a beautiful strawberry fruit.
Well, that's the one tasting note I have in my pad here, strawberry. I'm trying to take notes as I'm talking to you, which is probably very challenging, but cool. Yeah, that is amazing. GSMC.
GSMC.
So I always tell people Provençal style, or obviously in this case, Rhone style are my favorite rosés because they're so delicate. Yeah. You get this like beautiful color. This is 11.5 alcohol. I consider that pretty low. You could just drink a lot of this and not really get too in trouble.
It's almost more Provence style than a Provençal rosé in a way. Like a lot of our wines are fantasies of places. So, so like a lot of the Provençal rosés can be a little bit richer and fuller. And higher in alcohol. And so we're here in California. California is this place where you sort of reinvent stuff. Yeah. And it's kind of our history here. And so we sort of have these fantasies of these places.
Do you mean something like this?
The New California, exactly.
This is actually, I can't remember if I read about you in here first or I met you first, but I had to just reference this book because speaking of California wines and having you on here, I feel like you're sort of like the godfather of California wines and viticulture, and that's pretty cool.
Well, there's a revolution of California wines, that John Bonnet, when he wrote that book, I mean, John was from New York, and that book's kind of a love letter to California. I mean, he really fell in love with California when he was working at the Chronicle and writing about wine. And so when he wrote that book, The New California, I mean, when he put that word California in there, and new, it was for him, that was really on purpose. He was talking about the spirit of invention that is such a big part of California.
It's really cool. This is like one of my. Oh, here we go! Look who I found.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Or hair.
Oh no. It's so fun, like geeking out about wine and opening books like this and being like, I know that person. I've had his wines. I've sat in his picnic table. So it's pretty cool. I just, as I was reading up before the interview, I was like, oh, I got to pull that book out. That's sort of a fun little ode to Steve and all the different fabulous California winemakers in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of great people in that book. I thought it says like Ted Lemon just commented, and he's on the cover of it.
Oh, is he?
So like New California isn't necessarily new. That's an idea, right? Because Chateau, like Ridge is in there, and they started in the '60s, but it's the idea behind New California that John was talking about in that book.
I think I need to read the book again. It's been a few years, but most of my reading these days is dedicated. I'm working on the W set, so that'll be like my treat when I finish my test. I can read the New California wine book again. Cool. Yeah. Well, so for those that don't know the rosé, what is the price point again? It's pretty accessible.
I think it's like 20. That's actually Jill's department, but I'm pretty sure.
I know. I'm like
23 or 24, somewhere in there.
Like I said, I mean, for such a beautiful wine, I think that is extremely accessible, and that is something I feel like you're probably going to sell out of this soon because it's almost.
We're pretty much sold out of our rosé at this point.
Okay,
so the 2020 rosé.
Get rosé early next year, but there's hopefully some of the white wine we're going to drink in the capsule for you.
Yeah, we were scared about releasing a rosé. We always do our rosé. It usually sells out pretty fast, thank God. Mm-hmm. But with a smoke taint, a lot of people made rosé out of red grapes to try to salvage them after the fires.
Okay.
Which we did with our other brand, Tondu, which is lower price, like good everyday handmade wine. All of the red grapes were ruined with the smoke, so we made rosé, which made a delicious rosé. Mm-hmm. And so that was an example. A lot of friends made rosé. So there's so many. This year is going to be the year of the rosé. It's like there's so many new rosés as a pivot out of the smoke taint. And so we were really nervous, like what the hell is going to happen with the rosé market?
Yeah.
But it's people are just sucking it up, and so it's awesome.
Well, and it's funny you say that because you guys actually intentionally make the rosé, like when you're saying, oh, we plant these separate grapes. So what's interesting about rosé, a lot of people are like, oh, I've got some extra, I've got some juice, bleed off, I'll just make a rosé. And I think when you actually, dedicate a vineyard or a certain plot to the rosé, you're thoughtful about it. And you're like, we are going to make the rosé the way we want to make it. We're not just going to like take this leftover juice because we have it and whip up a rosé.
You can see the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's spectacular. So now I guess I'm going to say, well, I love Provençal style rosés and GSMCs.
There you go.
Well, speaking of rosés, I have two rosé blog posts, and I'm going to put this in my favorite rosés that are not rosés of Pinot Noirs. That's literally what the blog post is called, because I started this last summer and everybody kept sending me rosés of Pinot, and I'm like, I love Pinot Noir, but I'm less crazy about a rosé of Pinot than a rosé like this. I just think it's a different expression.
Yeah, absolutely. And but it may also come down to your intentionality. Like I love the Sinsky rosé of Pinot, but it's the same thing. They grow the grapes for rosé.
Right. Yeah.
Those are it's dedicated all the way through from planting to wine with rosé. Yeah. And I think that with rosé, you really do need the intention, I think, because the mindset with white wine and red wine are different in terms of viticulture and handling everything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm not saying I don't like rosé of Pinot. So all you people who are in my rosé of Pinot blog post, I do like you, or I wouldn't put you in there. But I just think it's different, and it's different style. And like this is to me, this is like we're in France at the beach or wherever. Like this is what I think of as a rosé. But anyway. Yeah,
there's a lot of sunshine in our rosé with those varietals. Grenache especially just really brings a lot of sunshine into the wine, and I think it just makes. It totally gets in that beach mindset.
And then when you're making that blend, is it like the same blend every year, the percentage of how you split it up, or
more or less? Yeah. Because Mother Nature dictates exactly how much Syrah we're gonna get this year versus Grenache.
Right.
But we don't like most of our blended wines are, because like we have other blended wines and they're all dictated for the most part like Mother Nature. We don't do a whole lot of test tubes and like figuring out.
Yeah.
Like, it's more like, okay, we know the idea. We know we love these certain vineyards. We like the way they work together. And this year we get a little bit more Grenache, that year we get a little bit more Syrah, or like in our white wine, a little bit more Ribolla Gialla, or a little bit more Semillon or Sauvignon Blanc. And it you know, in my opinion, that always works out. And when we do with blends, we know we're going to do the wine goes together right at the beginning. It's either fermented together, co-fermented, or right at the beginning. There's so much leeway when you blend like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you blend late, it's down to the percentages, makes it huge. Actually, it's kind of bizarre how big of a difference in the wine 1% can make.
Really?
But it's
because
like
it
cooking.
Doesn't have as long to ferment and age. So it's sort of like whatever that tastes like, then you're going to bottle it, and that's what it is, right?
To marry, right? Flavors have to marry.
Yeah.
If you were making a stew, and when you're braising the meat, if you tossed in like let's say a half a teaspoon of pepper, or a teaspoon of pepper, or a half a teaspoon of thyme, or a teaspoon of thyme, it wouldn't make any difference, right? You wouldn't taste the difference by the time you've made the stew and it's cooked for 3 hours.
Right.
If you were to add it at the end before you plate it, you'll totally tell the difference between a half a teaspoon of thyme and a teaspoon of thyme.
Yeah.
And so so blending early is so forgiving. And so when we know our blends, we know our wines, and so that the fruit goes together and it marries and becomes one thing. And it's that identity that then
I like
year
that
after
expression,
year.
Steve. I haven't heard that, but here you are providing all this wisdom. I knew I'd learn a lot today. So speaking of your wisdom, I think you and I talked a few years ago. I did some freelance writing, and I was hoping to do a piece about, organic agriculture and sustainability. And you and I had a couple conversations. Unfortunately, the publication didn't pick up the story, but I feel like I learned so much, and I wanted to revisit that with you. So can you talk about like overall your, vineyard practices and what your belief is in farming? Because I know a lot of people, you're a consultant and you advise for a lot of people besides just your own brands.
Mm-hmm. So, the overall philosophy, I guess, is with viticulture is working as an applied ecologist. So, we're thinking about the ecology of that site, the soil microbiome, the soil mineralogy, the water movement, the plants that grow in the soil, the way the plants are growing, the insects as they move, the plantings for the insects, the fungal ecology, diseases and how that fits in with beneficial organisms. It's all applied ecology. Okay. And you're applying the principles of ecology to be a physical trainer for the vines.
Okay.
So if you think about going to the gym with a physical trainer, they're like, okay, well, you're skinny, you need to eat more, or you're overweight, you need to eat less. As basic stuff, but we think like that with the vines. Mm-hmm. You need to exercise more. You know what? You're exercising too much. You need compost and take a break from exercising because you're overdoing it. That's how so we think about tending the vines as individuals the way you would think as a physical trainer, but approaching it using the tools of applied ecology.
Wow. So some of the words you were saying there sounds a little bit biodynamic-y to me. Do you do some of that here and there?
We don't do biodynamics, but there's a lot of principles within biodynamics that overlap with the way that I approach it in the sense of looking at because biodynamics thinks a lot about the vineyard the farm as an organism, and if you look at it ecologically, it's kind of similar. Like mm-hmm. So in terms of the principles of science, there's a lot of within science you have this term coevolution where two different paths getting to the same place basically. Okay. And so there's a lot of principles within biodynamics that overlap, but for me personally, I'm really into sort of ecological science and plant physiology and soil science, and I think that doesn't preclude a more mystical appreciation that exists within biodynamics, but my personal practice is more within the science of ecology and plant science.
Okay. I would imagine that there's like a lot of overlap and intention.
I think
what
so.
you guys are
mm-hmm.
doing, but just I've been your friend Steve Lemon. He could probably speak to that a little bit too. I've been there too and learned a lot about biodynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fascinating.
It really is. It's trying to understand what's going on. That's the whole thing of it, right? Is but there's so much mystery and complexity working in the vineyard, and so finding frameworks where you can try to understand what's going on, or at least understand some of the principles so that you can again back to caring for the vines, mm-hmm. right? And and so we don't want to the idea. We try to avoid a lot of the conventional farming of like synthetic soluble fertilizers and synthetic pesticides are like slamming on the brakes and slamming on the gas.
It's just
And
forcing the grapes to do something because you're like telling it to do it with
yeah,
pesticides or
exactly.
whatever.
And so so like the way I try to practice viticulture is more trying to see what's happening in this system and how can we make tweaks in the system so that things fall into place, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because this question that I keep getting wrong every time I'm doing my quiz is like, do you want fertile soil to grow grapes? And it's like, yeah, of course you do. And I'm like, duh. I'm like, this is a no-brainer. And then I get the quiz and it's like, no, you don't. And I'm like, what? I don't get it. So like, fertile soil's bad for grape growing or viticulture?
It's like are carbs good or bad for somebody?
Good
There's
analogy,
there's a
Steve.
time and a place.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, speaking of soil, shall we move on to the white wine? I mean,
Yes.
I almost finished the rosé, so I better leave a splash for the end. So, oh God, this nose is incredible. Whew. So guys, I don't know who's sipping at home with us, but we are drinking this. Your labels, I actually also want to ask about your labels because I love the beauty. They're like simple yet very beautiful, and I know there's a story behind them. Can you tell us what that story is?
Yeah. Well, the image that's repeating on all of our labels is the image of the pruning shears that you use to prune the vines. So that organic looking pattern of
Mm-hmm.
brambles, or people see so many different things. It's like a Rorschach test.
I know.
But
I thought it was maybe spiders, but I do see the pruners when you explain it that way.
a lot of people say spiders. A lot of people say dancers. It's so interesting.
It's a little
Um,
easier to see on this one because you have the blue and the silver.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I
So
see
those are all,
dancers here.
there's a big jumble of pruning shears, and that's the
Okay.
tool. That's the tool that symbolizes the craft of tending vines, basically. So we prune vines with the pruning shears. We harvest the fruit. We pop open bottles of beer. You know, there are all
Yeah.
around vineyard tool.
Very cool. And who's the artist?
Michael McDermott. So he's like great label designer and friend.
Yeah. And that's been the logo since you started.
Since we started, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You know, when we started, he knew we were into nature and we were into like natural systems, and so he had a flock of birds, and we were like, "That's beautiful. Could you incorporate a pruning shears in there somewhere, maybe on the back or something, because we want to symbolize our craft?" And so he changed the birds into pruning shears, and that was our first label.
Yeah, I love it. I like it how everyone's a little different. You know, like the proportion on the Cab Sauv, which we're going to be drinking next, is much smaller. And on the white background, I think it really like stands out. And you're like, wow. Yeah, really cool. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Well, back to this white wine. The aromatics on this, I mean, I'm getting so much like lemon and grapefruit and wet flint and apricot and stone fruit. How did you achieve that? I haven't even
Yeah.
tasted it and it smells so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of our favorite white wines in one wine, basically. I mean, there's like, you know, it's a kind of a Burgundian approach to winemaking in terms of barrel fermentation and abrasive reduction, and very sort of let the wine stand for itself. We try to find balance in the blend through it with this mix of French and Italian varietals. So,
Okay.
but they're like, you know, Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon are classic
Yeah.
pair of varietals that
French.
balance each other. Sauvignon Blanc gives you that backbone, and Semillon gives you a richness and a fullness. And the flavor wise, it's like the dried fig and kind of beeswax comes from the Semillon, and like the grapefruit is from the Sauvignon Blanc.
Beeswax. That's a good one. Beeswax. I'm not getting the fig. I'm gonna have to smell later when I've got more time to just.
The fig comes out when the wine's older.
Okay.
So 4 or 5 years down the road,
The tertiary
the
flavors.
figs
But
comes
this
out.
doesn't
Yeah,
see any oak, right? I'm assuming this
it does. No, that has a fair amount of new oak.
really because I just
And
keep reading how like for like the aromatic whites, it's like cold fermented and then inert vessels, you know, stainless
yeah,
steel or
totally.
concrete. So I would have guessed no oak.
So my attitude on aromatics is that there's the esters that are left over from the fermentation. We don't want them. They're not going to be part of the aging process, and I find it a little over the top. And so the
Okay.
cool fermentation on the aromatic whites, I don't go. The weird thing about wine is people take an aromatic white that's already highly aromatic and then
Yeah.
try to hold in every aroma that it has, and it's too much.
Okay. It's
And
like when you open a perfume and you're like, oh my God, enough. Or you
yeah,
you spray too
but
much.
maybe a wine that's a grape variety that's not as aromatic, you might want to hold on to the aromas. But an aromatic grape, we'd like to let some of the aromas go so that it settles into more of a balance.
Oh yeah.
But so we barrel ferment warmer, and so what that does is that a lot of the fermentation characters leave, and we get into those tertiary, secondary flavors sooner, and more into the core of what that wine is.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, and oak we use oak in our winemaking in the way that like someone could use like mascara, where it's like, there you go. It's an enhancer, but you don't want it to like, you want it to enhance so you see someone's eyes more, not less.
So is this neutral oak you're using in here?
No, there's a new oak in there. And so I feel that this wine can stand up to a certain amount of new oak. And so it's just like someone who already, I'm going to use the mascara analogy. If you already have beautiful eyes and then a little bit of mascara, like show the eyes.
Okay.
You may not want to draw attention to the eyes if like.
I don't know any woman that doesn't want to have longer eyelashes, but.
Exactly. So that's how oak is to me is supporting. Yeah. And so this wine, like you can't taste the oak. The oak's a supporting role.
Yeah. Well, I think it illustrates, how beautiful and like intentional and thoughtful the winemaking is. Like I was like, oh, it's so aromatic in this. You must have made it in, stainless steel. And you're like, no, actually, not neutral oak. So one question, I'm looking at the blend. I just want to show everybody because it's so cool. Now this Tokai, this isn't the Tokai that goes into like Tokai, fermented wines, is it?
No. So there's a problem on naming wise, unfortunately. So Tokai, the Tokai of the region in Hungary, where they go like ferment and Harslavlu and stuff, is totally different than the Tokai Friulano variety of Friuli, Italy.
Yeah, because they were spelled differently. I'm like, I don't think they're the same, but I've never heard it referenced again.
I think that in Friuli they were Tokai was a very highly esteemed wine growing region. And unfortunately the Soviets really killed that. But if you have an opportunity to drink wines from Tokai in Hungary, do it because they're one of the best values in the world of wine right now.
Really?
They're rebuilding their wine industry with amazing old vineyards and terroir and some new vineyards.
Is it sort of like Croatia? Because Croatia also has very great wines that I feel like are underdiscovered because they're not exporting them much.
The whole region is rebuilding basically, but Tokai was one of the great white wine regions of the world before the Soviets, basically, and so like in Friulano, Tokai Friulano is like I think my theory is, without being a historian of wine, is that
you are a historian of wine, so please be a historian.
It's kind of like in California calling it Hardy Burgundy or Chablis wine or something. There's an homage. Okay. And so that in the EU, in Friuli, they had to change the name from Tokai Friulano to just Friulano because Hungary is in the EU is like, hey, that's complete horseshit that you're calling your wine Tokai. We're Tokai. Yeah. And so, but the U.S. is behind, and so Friulano is not an approved variety in the U.S. It's Tokai Friulano.
That's very cool.
So we haven't caught up to the EU yet with our regulations on how we can name our wine. And that's the variety is Tokai Friulano. It's
But is that from Napa?
Like, we grow it in Napa. Yep, we grow it in Napa at the Benjir Vineyard. It used to be the Vare Vineyard, but George Vare passed away, and the Benjirs bought it. And so we have 4 rows of Friulano next to the Ribolla Gialla. Oh my God, I need to. It gives you a really nice spice in the nose.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I haven't been to your new tasting room or your second vineyard. I've only been to I've been to the home ranch a few times, which is spectacular. I'll never forget, you were like walking around in like rain boots and, you looked very Scandinavian. I think we actually had this conversation. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, I want to come and like see these grapes, and I want to see how big and juicy the rosé grapes are. So you said you harvest them in July, so we've got time, right?
Yeah, the last week of July into the first couple weeks of August.
Okay. I'll be in Chicago the late July. Maybe I'll come in the front end before you harvest.
When we start harvesting, it's like we're harvesting.
You're like,
we make a lot of different wines. It's like 2.5 months. So you can definitely catch us with harvest.
Yeah. Well, I've attended a few harvests, and this fall I actually attended one where I showed up in the vineyard at 5 a.m, which was really cool. So I feel like that's like the real harvest versus, just showing up at the winery at 9 a.m. and getting a glass of rosé and watching everybody make wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty
It's
glamorous,
pretty good though.
easy, but like not like
Yeah.
the real get down and dirty.
Yeah. Well, we can get some rubber boots on, get
Yes,
Scandinavian, and
yes,
get
let's
in
do
there and
it.
clean something.
Yeah, I can wear my hunter boots. I feel like we haven't
Yeah.
gotten enough rain, so none of us are wearing our rain boots as much as we'd
No
like
rain
to.
boots right now, but yeah, we'll still need them for during harvest though.
Yeah. So we have so I mean this is awesome. We've got viewers from Canada, from Norway. I love this Richard Donnet. Richard Donnet, is that a play on Chardonnay? Because if so, we should be friends.
Yes.
And he's been to the home ranch. He must be one of your wine club members.
Yeah, we have awesome wine club members.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to make sure, speaking of wine club, oh, Richard, there's no Viognier in here. It looks like that was a question a little while ago. It's Sauv Blanc, Ribolla Gialla, which I also don't know about, Steve,
Oh
Semillon, and
yeah.
the Tokai Friulano.
Okay. So the Ribolla Gialla is a really important part of that wine. That's the finish.
Okay.
So that it's salinity and oyster shell minerality,
Oh, yeah.
wet, like rain on rocks. That's the flavors of the Ribolla.
It's
And it's kind of haunting and just kind of on the
it's
back
sort
end.
of like that stone minerality, like also like, like Burgundy, like Chablis in a
Yeah.
way.
The amazing thing about Ribolla Gialla, our Ribolla Gialla here just tastes like wet rocks. Like the fruit
Mm,
tastes like wet rocks. It's
delicious.
not a fermentation character. It's actually not terroir. It's the grape. The
Yeah.
grape tastes like wet rocks. And for me, I grew up in the desert in Tucson, Arizona, and we used to have
Wow.
like the summer rains, and that when that rain hits the rocks in the summer,
Yeah.
that's just an amazing smell.
Yeah.
And when I get that in wine, I just go nuts, and the Ribolla has that.
So Steve, I didn't know you grew up in Arizona, but we'll cover that in that interview, which you're sending back to me very soon. So guys, Steve is sharing a lot of inside information in an interview that you'll have to wait on the edge of your pants to see, but it'll be going on the blog soon, right, Steve?
Well, you should have that already, so I'm gonna have to see if it's sent.
Oh yeah, maybe
It might have
it's
got
probably
not
in
made
the
it to you.
drafts. I do that a lot. I like draft an email and then I get distracted. And then a week later, I'm like, why haven't they responded? So yeah, maybe it's in your drafts, but I can't wait to see it.
Okay.
Okay, so Richard Donnet, these great questions. Met Viognier as a ferment aromatic. Oh yes, indeed, it is a fermented aromatic focused wine.
Yeah, so we actually we go make Viognier when we once in a while, and I'll ferment it hot and try to blow some of that stuff off.
Really? You just like to? I love it because I thought Viognier was also like cold fermented, the inert
Yeah,
vessels.
and then they get so over the top, it
Yeah.
can be undrinkable, and so it can be a really nice wine if you can tame it down
Yeah.
into balance.
Yeah. So I'm beginning to understand how you create these, spectacular, maybe, I don't want to say misunderstood, but like unexpected, So like if this was cold fermented, you're just saying like the fruit would just be so in your face and just too much.
Too much, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
one of the things that sometimes on the winemaking side, sometimes that we can forget that people are going to drink the wine. Little detail that they're going to drink it over a period of time, and if it's too much, it's cloying.
yeah. Well, I mean, I would say the white and the rosé, I mean, these are pretty drinkable now. I am curious how this white would age. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure any of your wines would age beautifully, but like it seems like one that you'd want to drink pretty soon after you received it.
That one, you know what? That one ages like crazy. The Sauvignon Blanc fades down, and the
Yeah.
Semillon and Ribolla come up, and it gets really kind of nutty, and you get into the wildflower honey,
Yeah.
and it's actually can get pretty spicy, kind of.
Okay.
Like we had a problem where in 2008 our distributor in Las Vegas went out of business. Because
Oh,
like Las Vegas, corporate buying just clamped down in the recession in 2008. They
right.
went out of business.
All those bankers that didn't have their expense accounts to go to Vegas
Yeah,
and do
exactly.
expensive meals and hotels.
Yeah, so we had to buy back our white wine from Vegas, our 2005 vintage.
Okay.
And when they did the foie gras ban, Qua in San Francisco did like a foie gras ramen.
Oh.
And they were going to pair it with a sauternes, but they instead
Yeah.
paired it with our white wine, so they could. It
Wow.
was like a
So it
dry
was like
white, but it had the
a dessert.
flavors of like a sauternes because it gets into that wildflower honey, almost like a candied citrus rind kind of character.
Oh, sounds delicious. Orange marmalade, right? That's a descriptor I need to know for sauternes.
Yeah.
Or sherry. It all sort of blends together. Well, that's so cool. So what a way to sort of make, lemonade out of limes. You
Or
took that and then you got to do it with a, wait, which restaurant did you say it was at?
I think it was Qua.
Wow.
No, it
Very
wasn't
cool.
Qua. Sorry, it wasn't Qua. It was, I'm blanking out on the it was Tara's sister restaurant in the city. I'm blanking out on the
Cool. Well, speaking of
yeah.
restaurants, I did have a little flashback as I was thinking about our history together and how I, met you and Jill over the years. Remember that dinner I attended, well, that you hosted at the Progress in the private dining room
Oh yeah,
upstairs? That was spectacular. I was just at
that
the
was
Progress
fun.
a couple weeks ago dining outside and Stuart was there and had some beautiful wines as usual. And I thought of that dinner. I mean, how much do we all miss like getting together and winemaker
Oh
dinners and
man.
gathering? Yeah.
Well, the restaurants, thank God, are, the people that have managed to make it. It seems like they're not at full capacity yet, but the reservations are full,
Mm-hmm.
and there's hope. The Independent Restaurant Coalition worked so hard on getting relief for the restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really proud that we were the first winery to do a significant donation. We donated 350 cases of wine.
Wow.
And so it was a $53,000 donation to the Independent Restaurant Coalition last
That's amazing.
last May,
Okay.
to try to, because we're tied in with the restaurants.
Yeah. Well, and I
We
feel like
sell like
you guys are
60% of
so
our wine in
tight. Like
restaurants.
every som in San Francisco like loves and adores you. I mean, all of my favorite restaurants, I feel like you're always on the, you're at like Staper, Nopa, you're at all the Rich Table, like all the ones that like foodies like love to go to. So that's awesome. You guys were able to do that. And I know it's been really exciting seeing restaurants come back. I finally got to go to Nopa a few weeks ago when they opened their what do you call that, outdoor, and I was like,
Oh, good.
Lawrence, Holly, like you just miss these people that are just like a part of our regular life before. You don't think anything of like, oh, I guess I don't get to go to Sunday brunch, which is like your usual go-to for 2 years or a year and a half.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's going to
Yeah.
be awesome when we're back in those Sunday brunches. We were at, Bay Grape just opened up in Napa, and those are
Oh,
friends
they
of
did?
ours. And
I didn't know that.
they just opened up like 3 weeks ago or something.
Awesome.
And so I was just there right before this, having a little, because I have a friend from out of town, and
Yeah.
they're all vaccinated, and it was just like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's starting to get back to normal, and it
I know.
feels so good.
I mean, all the cool kids are vaccinated. It's like if you want to go out and hang out, you got to get vaccinated and stay
Yeah, that's
safe.
right.
So, well, that's really cool. I didn't know Bay Grape open out there. And let's talk about your tasting room. So, anybody that hasn't visited, where are you located and how are you hosting visitors and everything?
Okay, so we were closed until we all got vaccinated, even though when we were allowed to be open, because our biggest fear was that we lose. There's the fear of dying, but the
Right.
bigger than that fear was the fear of losing our sense of smell and taste.
That's sort of what my fear was too. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, that's freaky. And so if you're all about food and wine,
Yep.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we're just like, screw it, we're closed, until we get vaccinated. And so everyone who's got vaccinated, we opened back up about a month ago or so.
Okay.
And so now our tasting room, I mean, we're lucky that we have good weather and we have plenty of outside spaces. So we're fully open without outside,
Great.
and we're booked up. People want to get out. It's a lot of people from the Bay Area,
Yeah, I know
and
everybody is itching. I keep like my newsletter keeps like promoting wine country. And I'm like, maybe I should pause for a little bit, but it's one of those things. I mean, who doesn't? We've been cooped up so long. Like everyone's just itching to support guys and get out and enjoy the beautiful scenery. I mean,
yeah,
Napa, like what's there not to love?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gosh, I knew this was going to go a little bit longer than half an hour. It's hard when it's people that I just want to talk to for hours and the wines are so beautiful. Well, let's move on to the Cabernet
Yep.
Sauvignon. Let me find that bottle for everybody. Here it is.
Okay. I get
It's
a little
sort
bit
of,
more
I don't
light.
know if you were a big Dave Matthews fan. It reminds me of the cover of one of his like screaming albums. Remember which one that was?
I
Or
don't know
Dancing
which one.
Nancy's or something?
Now I have to go look at that cover. I have
Yeah,
no
I mean,
clue.
I love Dave Matthews. I played that album a lot. I mean, in my younger years, but I still listen to it. And that logo sort of has like a similar vibe. You should send Dave
Yeah,
Matthews a bottle and be like, we're big fans.
I need to do that. It's funny that you say that, because it's actually the opposite kind of direction we were going. We were thinking with the cab, is that since it's a Napa Valley Cabernet, we wanted to be a little bit more formal with that label,
Yeah.
and kind of center it, and kind of refer to the history, of Cabernet here in this valley.
Well, I think it does
There's
look very elegant on the white and the smaller logo. I'm just saying, you'll see a resemblance when you look at the album, and it's still formal and very beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like we need to just like play that song in the background now. So, I'm drinking this out of my favorite Cabernet glasses. Have you seen these? These are Riedel.
Wow. Have you not seen that little bulge at the bottom?
Yeah, apparently it's Maximilian's like design, and they sent
Okay.
it to me a while ago, and they've been very handy with my Cabernet tastings because they're so, beautiful and impactful versus just like a regular glass.
Yeah, look at that thing. That is a hell of a glass.
Yeah, you might need to get some, and you just feel like you need a big steak with this glass of beautiful Cabernet.
I had a dinner. I was talking to one of the members. I was sitting next to one of the members of the Riedel family. I'm blanking out his name, George or something like that. And he was saying that they need to do an orange wine glass. And I was, because we make our orange, we make orange wine.
I don't think I knew that you did.
Yeah, our Ribolla Gialla is one of the first orange wines in California. And, we love it. And we drink a lot of orange wine. And it was like, yeah, you need it. So I haven't heard if they actually did an orange wine glass, but they need to.
Okay, Riedel, if you're listening.
Exactly. Get on this. Come on,
I know. Well, I was just having this conversation. I was in Paso Robles a couple of weeks ago, and there was like all these different glasses and I'm like, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I have like I know what the Pinot glasses are. I know what the Chardonnay, and I know what like the sparkling. I don't use a champagne one. I use the tulip flute because we all know champagne flutes are out. But other than that, like, I don't know what half of I don't know what my Cab Franc glass is, the Merlot glass. Like, they need to like etch it at the bottom. So like when you're like trying to, this actually says it. It says Cab Sauv.
Really? What a trip. So now the question is what style of Cab Sauv? Like our Cab Sauv is a classic style, red fruit, which is totally different than the black fruit. I'm sure that Riedel has totally figured out that the black fruits are they evolve differently in the nose than the red fruits.
Well, I think yours is a red fruit, right?
Yeah, we're all about the red fruit.
Okay, good. I got that right.
Red fruit is so refreshing and so good with food, and it also from aging. I mean, I don't know how many like 20, 30-year-old Cabernets where if they're a black fruited Cab, that's gone. The red fruit persists.
That's good to know. I didn't realize that. So red fruit, is that like a difference in the clone or just a difference of the terroir where it's grown?
It's intent, basically, because Cabernet, the amazing thing about the Cabernet grape in our region, in Napa, like Cabernet in Bordeaux, pre-global warming was basically most of the time was just made it to red fruit, and that's that, basically.
Okay.
Because it goes through the red fruit, then you kind of have a little gap in there, and it gets into the black fruit. And then you get into the jammy characters, and then you can get into like the pruny, raisiny characters. And you can get into that soy sauce that that Richard's referring to. And
Richard, you should just join us. This guy's great.
Yeah, totally. And so,
looking for an internship, Richard?
So like we pick our Cab at red fruit. I have a theory about red wine that the great wines of the world, the classic great wines of the world. I'm going to say that not like the Johnny Come Latelys from a score standpoint, but like time honored, almost always have a core of red fruit.
Interesting.
Black fruit is an accent. The core of black fruit is a new phenomenon, and it doesn't age and it doesn't go with food the way that red fruit does. So whether you're in Burgundy, whether you're in Barolo, or whether you're in Bordeaux, or whether you're in Chinon, you go to a classic example, whether you're in Rioja, it's red fruit is the core. And I think the black fruit is ahistorical and heavy and kind of goes along with less acidity, higher alcohol. And so when we taste the grapes as they're ripening, we really go for that moment in time because the flavors are evolving every day. Mm-hmm. Viticulturally, in terms of our organic farming and the way we handle the soil and back to being like the ecology and the personal trainer for the vines, the tannins are hopefully ripe early enough in the season that you're not waiting for the tannins to get there. So if you have to worry about the bad stuff going away, then that frees you up to just pick on flavor.
Okay.
And when there's that bright, juicy red fruit, that's when we harvest, and that's what we're trying to capture in that Cabernet.
Well, a Cabernet is a later harvest grape, right?
Yeah, but for us, we harvest in September because you can see right here in the vineyard, you can see all these grasses.
Yeah.
Like these vines,
Cover crops.
they have this green grass cover crops. It's there. The compost under the soil. The tannins are getting ripe nice and fast, and
Okay.
especially nowadays it's so warm.
Right, I know.
Like,
Global warming, is that gonna like move up the whole like vineyard harvesting schedule? Like is
well, it
everybody
changes
going
the
up?
harvesting schedule for sure. We can still we're making great wines with global warming.
Right.
We have to just change. It used to be that you got as much light and sun on the fruit as possible so it would get ripe. Now we're protecting the fruit from the sun so that it doesn't
Right.
get overripe. So we have, we have a
Are you
lot
doing
of
like canopy management? How are you protecting
yeah.
the yeah?
Yeah, so basically we're putting cross arms on the vineyard so that it's spread, the fruit is, the leaves are spread out. You
And they're
leave the
covering
leaves
the
around the
grapes.
fruit. You kind of have timing of some operations, like when you like thin the shoots in the spring so that you get more. We actually want more. They call them laterals. These little shoots that grow off the sides of the main shoot. That have
Why do you
leaves
want
that
more of them? Why do you
we
want
want.
more?
Used to be that you want less. Now we want more. So we've had to like just change, like totally turn over a lot of the mindset of, it used to be like bring as much light in as possible.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways we can do things where the fruit now is nicely protected behind the leaves. And I feel like we've learned so much about viticulture that we're learning faster than the climate's getting warmer. And so the
So you're
wine, if
staying
anything,
ahead of
is
it.
we're staying ahead of it, I think. And
Well,
the
I
wines
mean,
are getting better, not
they
worse.
still taste phenomenal, so obviously you're staying ahead of it.
I think we're staying ahead of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's super interesting. So which vineyard are you there? What are you showing us?
This is our home place. So this
Okay.
is Refosco. There's nothing in this in the cab. This is
Okay.
Refosco, Schioppettino, Ribolla Gialla, Cabernet Franc, um, and a few little blenders, Petit
Is the
Verdot.
cab 100% caps off?
There's a little bit of Petit Verdot in it as well.
Okay. Yeah, because it doesn't have, that whole mix of the four grapes like the white.
We sometimes with the cab the white's a true. It's like a blend. That's why we put the blend on there. The cab is
Yeah.
cab, but it's like there might be 3 or 4% Petit Verdot in there, which is very traditional with Cabernet.
Well,
With
and I just
with
noticed it's 13% alcohol, which
yeah.
that's really nice and I mean, maybe that's why it's just like so lovely. I feel like sometimes, when I have like a 14.7 or a 14.8 Napa cab, it's just you can't even drink it without a big steak next to it.
Well, that's what I was saying about with the rosé is
Mm-hmm.
even the Cabernet hopefully is energizing.
Yeah.
So the mantra is wait without heaviness, so that you can drink that wine and then you can get up and go, now what am I going to go do?
Yeah.
You might have a buzz, but you're not,
I'm gonna
you're
go
not
for a
like
jog.
ready for bed. It's
Yeah.
like you want to go have fun, and that's the idea. So like a little bit lower alcohol, so you can just drink the wine. I don't like freaking out about like, can I have one more glass of wine, or is it going to put me over
Who
the edge? I
freaks
want
out
to
about
just.
that? I don't believe in rules when it comes to wine. If you want another, you drink it as long as you're not driving.
Well, exactly. But if for me, if the wine's too heavy, then I get too tired.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
It
so I
weighs you
like so that
down.
the wine's a little bit lighter. I can just keep on drinking throughout my whole meal or my whole evening, and just have fun the whole time.
Yeah. I'm on the same bandwagon, Steve. I always drink throughout the whole meal. So I mean, hello. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's like when you love beautiful wine, sometimes I'm like, oh, I probably don't need that extra glass. But like, what am I going to sit there with my friends and not drink a glass of wine? To me, that feels like very celebratory, and just these are, like I always say, like I drink my dessert. I've started eating my dessert too, which is, I don't suggest both because you have to pick your
Yeah.
calories, but
Yeah.
I prefer to drink my dessert.
Exactly. So you're the same thing. When you set the table, the wine glass goes on there, and it's part of eating dinner is having wine. And so you need to have a wine that works with your system and works with the food, that works with your lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think all of these do. I mean, the rosé is going to be at the birthday national celebratory rosé party. This white, I actually have this beautiful scallop recipe that I've been like attempting to make because I had the most life-changing scallops. Where was it? Oh, I was at the Angler, and I was like, what is in these scallops? Like, did you like shoot them up with like
Yeah.
butter. Like they were just so and they're like, they're from Maine. I'm like, well, the Maine scallops are life changing. So now I want to make
Nantucket scallops, those little guys are so good.
Where?
Yeah. In Nantucket, they're really proud of these little scallops.
Well,
they're so sweet.
I highly recommend the angler scallops if you go and have the
Yeah.
Reduccio salad. Oh my God, that restaurant is
Sounds
so
good.
great. So I think your white would be perfect without those scallops that I'm going to
Well,
attempt to make.
Angler buys a lot of our white, so there you go. That's a really good Angler. We have a really good relationship with Angler. They're related with Saison. The whole
Yep.
group is like we're definitely on the same page.
Yeah, yeah, it's a gem. I mean, I feel like that was one of my first group dinners, and there was like 5 of us at a table masked, and I was like, feels really good.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I feel like we covered so much. I want to make sure we talked about everything. So we talked about the rosé, we talked about the white, we talked about your beautiful tasting room. What do you guys have cooking? Like, what's going on in the summer? Do you have any cool events that people should know about in case they want to come hang with you
Events.
guys?
I mean, our tasting room is open. You know, we're just plugging away, trying to do our thing. We're trying to, we're still trying to work on our, we're a values-based company, so we're working on our internships. We have our internships for women and people of color in the vineyard. That's been taking a lot of my attention right now this summer that I've been really enjoying.
Women, that's a whole other conversation, the women winemaking style versus men, but we'll do another Instagram live about that.
There's another one. Yeah. Well, hopefully some of the people that are learning the vineyard with us are going to go on and set the world on fire with their winemaking.
Of course they are.
Fun to see what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you're doing like internships. Are they like cellar? I love all the terms.
Well, but out in the vineyard is the hardest place to break into.
Okay.
And so especially for women and people of color, and so that's what we're trying to provide the vineyard side.
Great.
You can get a foundation in the vines.
Right.
The cellar part is a lot easier to learn, and then you have a really good foundation for your career.
Okay. Well, if I pop by for the pre-rosé harvest tour or vineyard tour, hopefully I can meet some of your interns and share their stories. Yeah, that would be really cool. I didn't realize with everything that was going on with like Me Too, and I looked at my content and I'm like, I don't have a lot of female winemakers that I've interviewed, so I'm guilty of this too. And same thing, with Black Lives Matter. I was like, I haven't come across a lot of Black winemakers. Shame on me for not seeking it out. So, now I have a blog post of the best Black winemakers you should know. And I even did one on the blessed rising Black Psalms, which is a whole
that's
cool
awesome
topic.
Well, it's never going to change if we don't shine that spotlight, right?
Yeah, and I think Psalms are as critical as chefs in your dining experience, because if the Psalm can't understand what you're describing and what wines you want, it's like, the wine comes and I'm like, no, I don't like this. I'm sorry. Send it back and let's find something I like.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, that's really cool. So you guys have a lot cooking over there. And if people want to visit you, they should make a reservation. I'm assuming everything's still reservation, right?
Yep. Yeah. We usually book out if so people need to plan ahead. Unfortunately, we'd love to be able to get people last minute, but with us, they need to plan ahead a little bit.
And I feel like
we'd love to host everybody.
Laws in Napa, it's it's just a good rule of thumb to be reservation. Are you dog friendly by any chance?
If they're little dogs that are well behaved.
Oh, good. So I can bring my little Ernestine. Well, good. I'll have to visit, and I'll put you guys. I have a great blog post, the best Napa dog-friendly wineries, because it's like a thing. It's like when people wine taste with their children, which I don't have a blog post about that, but maybe I should. Okay.
And our wines are available, and I think that there's a on the wines that we did today are available, and there's a little discount code, which I believe is
JSF.
JSF, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, guys, if you fell in love with the wines, hopefully, I love them. Luckily I Corvin them, because I was like, I cannot finish these tonight, and I hate to waste beautiful wines. But let me give you guys a little flash. So the rosé, which I think is like under $25, the white blend, which I highly recommend on its own or with the scallop recipe I'm gonna make, or any type of fish or seafood. And then the beautiful Cab Sauv, which with a smidge of Petit Verdot. Oh, and somebody actually sent the link to the Dave Matthews cover, so you have to check that out.
You gotta check that out.
Click it, because we will leave the Instagram live. And Sven, Anglers in San Francisco. So when you come to San Francisco, reach out to me. I love to hang out with Norwegians, and we'll go to Angler.
There you go.
And drink Matthiasson wines.
Okay.
Oh, I almost forgot, Steve. We have to take a photo if you don't mind. So when this goes on my Instagram TV channel, there's a cute picture of you and I.
Let's do it.
Okay, hopefully I won't disconnect you because this involves screenshotting. So smile. Do you have a bottle handy you can hold up?
I don't. I have a
Okay.
vine I'll go stand next to.
Okay, let's stand next to a vine. That's a great idea. All right. And oh, I didn't even say hi to Jill. Be sure to say hi to Jill, by the way. Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, we're gonna do one more. Oh, oh. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we got it. Okay, and so for those of you that might have missed the beginning of this, don't worry. This will be on my Instagram TV channel and also on my YouTube channel in a few days. So, and I think Matthiasson will have a copy of this too, so maybe they'll be sharing it as well.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Steve. You are full of information and beautiful wines. And yeah, tell Jill we missed her. I
will. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, I know. This was a lot of fun. A perfect Thursday evening kickoff. Now I've got a little bit left in each glass, and I know what I'll be doing after this.
Exactly.
Okay, cheers, Steve.
All right, bye.
Bye. Good night.